This is the Think About It channel. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time if this is your first time. This is an episode of a segment I call Rough Draft, where we talk to different Philly area, South Jersey area authors, writers, poets, etc. This is our first episode, and I'm very fortunate to have a very special guest. Her name is E.L. Berkley. She's a Philadelphia-based author who earned her bachelor's and master's from Rowan University. Shout out to all the Rowan people out there, including
Well,
myself.
props.
I'm a sort of a fake Rowan person, but I'll take the credit. Her works include Beyond the Cracked Door and Black Jenny, which are two short story collections full of mystery, thrill, and suspense, and both are now available on your favorite online retailer, Amazon. So my first question is, how long have you been writing for, and when did you know it was something you seriously wanted to pursue?
So I have to give credit to my theater choir roots. Um, so definitely a drama club kid. Um, so that kind of started. So we would do some writing for the younger thespians, but I started writing poetry around 12. Um, and like music and books, especially, it was an outlet for me. So 12 is kind of where really started. And then it gained some traction throughout the years. And then I lost everything on a computer, which totally like tanked. it just, it totally tanked my writing mojo. Um, so I stopped for a long time. And then I would still kind of write in college a little bit, um, scattered poetry, but not a collective work. So I didn't start really writing again until 2017, 18 with the birth uh, journey of Beyond the Cracked Door.
Was there like a moment for you where it was like, hey, I'm gonna pick up writing again and I'm gonna like do something with it? Because I know for me there was that moment. It was 2015. I was, my first department by myself. I'm a teacher, so I was in my first teaching job. I had a lot of free time on my hands. I always liked to write, but I was always sort of like, my stuff's not gonna be good enough, or like I'm not gonna be able to make it as a writer because it's so unstable. But like something clicked in 2015 for me. It was like, oh, you can just do this, and it doesn't have to be high stakes. You just do it and pursue it because you like it. And I found out about self-publishing through Amazon, which is how I do it, and
Mhm.
it's been an awesome experience. So did you have like sort of like a boom moment where it was like, you know what, I started at 12, but I'm going to come back to this now and like do it for real? Because you have two books, so this is like
I
a thing.
do. It
So
it
was there
it
like that moment for you?
is. So I get I'm a firm believer that you should not ignore your dreams, and I mean that quite literally while you sleep. Um, and I started to get dreams, and I'd wake up and I'd write something down. I'd try to remember as much of that dream as possible. And then I started to see like this. It's like you ever see like a blurry picture, and then it starts to come into focus, and I'm like, oh, this is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me of something that Stephen King said. He said, uh, building a story is like a building an ice cream cone. Sometimes you get the cone first, sometimes you get the ice cream first. So I started getting these pieces, and I was always a people watcher. So as the dreams would start to come to life, so to speak, then I started to marry that with the world around me. And it's quite interesting.
That's super cool.
So
I've never heard anybody sort of like talk about their experience like that, which is really interesting. That's such a cool way to weave things together.
like
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes it can get a little trippy,
Sure.
um, in a good way. Um, but also, if you're 3 o'clock in the morning, like, shucks, let me write this down before I forget, or I'm sending myself text messages like save. So
Hmm. We'll do a shameless plug already. Black Ginny, very trippy in a good way. We'll put
I
that out there
appreciate
right off
that.
the bat.
Right
Like
up,
first paragraph and a half, I'm like, I have no clue what's going on, and I love it. And I'm gonna keep going to try to figure it out. But we'll talk more about that later on. Don't worry.
all
So
right.
speaking of Stephen King, online I've got read over some of your bios and stuff. Stephen King, you said, is one of your favorite authors. You also said
Yeah,
V.C. Andrews, Maya
yeah,
Angelou, Anne Rice, Edgar Allan Poe. So that's a wide variety of people who do a wide variety of things, have a wide variety of
yes,
skills.
yes.
So if you could just share like one or two things about each of those people that you gravitate to and that you use to craft what you do.
So my first introduction to, I'm like, where do I even start? Let me start with VC Andrews, Flowers in the Attic. And if you don't know Flowers in the Attic, I'm pretty sure that my Gen X and Zennials know VC Andrews, Flowers in the Attic. Um, man, that for me, I read the book before I saw the movie. And so my imagination, because the way I grew up, it was books are really books and music is what I had. Um, I did not have a toy box. So for me to get lost in a book, I could visualize, I could hear, I could smell. And so when you talk about VC Andrews, and if you don't know the story, the synopsis is um, a mother of three kids, pretty much had gotten disowned by her family. And whatever happened, she comes back home to a very hard mother. She was supposed to be this socialite, debutante, and the grandmother, in essence, puts the kids in the attic to make it seem like the mother is now single and she slowly is poisoning them. And now you're talking about at the age that I was, there was no way I should have been reading VC Andrews, but this had me in a grip. And I could relate a little bit in my mind anyway, um, to this hardened grandmother. So that and that actually, VC Andrews led me into Stephen. Um, and what I love about both of those authors is that there is a certain everyday to their, it's not like, oh, Freddy Krueger and, go like these are people that you could have gone to church with. This is the grandmother could have been your Sunday school teacher, or your neighbor next door. So for me, V.C. Andrews and Stephen King share that one of my favorite Stephen King novels is Gerald's Game. Couple in the woods, kinky, kinky goes wrong. Oh shit. Now I'm tied to this bed and there's a wolf outside. Like, or he could take you to a whole nother realm. Literally, like we are on a different plane now. Now we're talking supernatural meets every day. So those are some of the things that I like about Stephen King, uh, Edgar Allan Poe. My goodness, Telltale Heart. You know, I could see. I was in that room. I could hear the heart beating under the floor. I was there. That's how vivid the pit and the pendulum. Like anything Edgar Allan Poe, I'm there. Um, Now, Maya Angelou, that is a more of a reflective cultural. Her first work for me, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. She's talking about her trauma and how her trauma literally took her voice and what she had to go through to take her voice back and then empower the whole world. One of her books that is current for me now is Letters to My Daughter. And it talks about everything from, how to behave uh, in public to just like real life. And it's timeless um, and still, it's reminiscent of old culture and values, but is still relevant and I think important to pass on. So, um, Anne Rice, I would not be married without Anne Rice. Um, Interview with the Vampire most definitely was a game changer um, for me personally. Um, but again, the supernatural, the unknown, the hey, you know what? There is enough of realism here. Um, I grew up on vampire movies. So Anne Rice, she did it right. Even before Interview with the Vampire, the movie came out, I could, like I said, I'm there. I'm there when Lestat gets his throat cut. So it's yeah. So those are some of my faves.
So we've been talking a lot about other people, but now let's talk a little bit more about you. A little nice segue there. And as somebody who has
Yeah.
read both of your books so far, now hearing you talk about the authors you like and the poets you like, you can definitely see those influences in the things you write. So hopefully, if someone's seeing this and hasn't read your stuff yet, hopefully they do, and hopefully they'll see what we're talking about now when they read your stuff. But let's talk about what you got out. You have Beyond the Cracked Door, which was your first collection. And
Yes.
then just I say a couple months ago because we're old and time sort of goes
Yeah.
fast now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
August feels like it was like 20 minutes ago. But
Yep.
Black Genie came out in late August. So they're two short stories collection that are sort of like series. They're storylines that sort of weave in and out of each other and connect to each other.
Yeah.
So what do you want to tell the people about those two things without spoiling anything?
Mm. So it's dark and not for the faint of heart. It takes a delve, it forces you to look at the dark side of human nature. It will force you to look at your darkness. So I say to people, um, and of course, the next book will have, I'll have the warning built into the Amazon profile. Um, it can be triggering, and it's designed that way on purpose. So that's why I say if you are sensitive in any way, if you have trauma that you are not ready to look at or relive, it's not for you. But if you like to delve into a world that you would not necessarily talk about, but you want to peek at, then you're going to walk with me beyond the cracked door. So that's what I will say about that.
I'll say to add to that, like the heaviness and the darkness is, I think when I first got the book before reading it, I thought, somebody told me it was like more of a horror thing, and I thought it was gonna be more gory. It's not gory. It's like you said, it is real life dark. I'd say like trauma. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot
Mm,
of generational trauma. There's a lot of personal trauma, and it's heavy in that nature.
right.
I would say it's real. Like there are, like you said, like there are supernatural elements to it, but it's like you said earlier, like it is very real. And like you said earlier, like the person might seem normal, but it could be the person you sit next to in church, and you find out they're not the person you thought you were.
Right.
So I think both books are fantastic in that way, where like it does make you think, it does make you challenge yourself. It does have like the supernatural elements, but it's also very real. Like any person in your either of these books could be somebody you know, or somebody you knew, or somebody that your cousin knows, or whatever, which I think makes it even more unsettling at times. Like,
And I think that, or it could be the person reading.
yeah, yeah,
This is not, you know, there are predators out there. They could be looking at themselves. They could be reading about themselves. Now that is a trip.
that is a trip. So
So,
to move on to like our next point, just by talking to you for the few minutes we have so far, like there's definitely a lot of thought and emotion and and influence that has gone into these things. Um, and sort of reading your bio in the books and your bio on Amazon, and then reading the books, you can definitely see there's a lot of parallels between the people you are writing and yourself. And I don't think that's an uncommon thing for authors to pour aspects of themselves into their books, or flat out put themselves into your books. Um, so for you personally, what is that like, sort of taking your own experiences, your own trauma, your own life to an extent, and putting it into a work of fiction? Like, how does it
so
feel?
what I will say to that, first I want to say that there is a thread of truth in everything I write. It may not be my truth. It could be a spider web thread, or it could be as thick as a thread of yarn. So I want to make sure that I say that. But for things that seem parallel, and some of those threads are for my journey, there is no aspect of my story, whether it be my real life story, whether it be EL's story, there is nothing that I shy away from. So for me, it is a there is a level of freedom in owning each one of my characters, no matter what the storyline of that character or background is for that character. Um, Being able to go from creator to character, and like any good thespian, shout out to my thespian people, when you are acting, every actor has to pull from something
Mhm.
to make it real and believable and hit you right where it needs to hit. So I don't care who you are, there is an aspect of boom, I'm going to hit you. I'm going to find who you are. I'm going to take my experiences, because the cool thing, and I do say it that way, the cool thing about my experiences, I'm not the only one that's experienced them. So I know that if I'm talking from a point of anger or fear or uncertainty, or I thought this was this, and now I find that it's that, and I'm not sure how I feel about either of it. There's someone that can go, shit, yeah, yeah. No matter whether it's oh, I don't know how I feel. I feel conflicted. Um, One of my characters, he's very conflicted of the life that he used to have to the life that he currently has, and he has lost himself in it. He can't identify with anything anymore. So it's it's a whole trip. But I take freedom in that. No.
Do you just sort of piggyback off that? Do you find certain characters or certain storylines more challenging than others to write for, or more like emotionally, spiritually taxing to write for than others? Do like some of the characters and storylines come, when I mean easier, like, you know what I mean, like emotionally, spiritually, traumatically, not like putting the pen to paper, but like getting yourself to do that than others?
So it is when you open up yourself, and you do have to be careful, but you've got to open up yourself. You have to become, you have to be able to shift perspectives. So if you know what it is to be a victim and you're looking through the victim lens, you have to put that, you have to turn it around just like you do with your camera and those little arrows, and you hit that. And now, boom, you have to be able to put yourself in the predator perspective. Um, and yeah, there are certain zones that it's like, man, it can be, but the comfort is it's my world. I'm E.L. Berkley. So I am the creator. I'm the catalyst. I'm the antagonist. I can switch that perspective, and there's nobody hunting me. I am the predator. I am the savior. I can change right. And there is a weird, there's freedom in that. So it's not necessarily harder versus, but some characters take more time to step into that whole, because when you step into that role, you have to be able to feel and think and move like that character. And there are some characters that they want their time. It takes a little bit more time. So,
That's interesting. I feel that way with my characters sometimes too. That some come more natural. When you're
mm,
putting yourself in their shoes, and some are a little bit harder. And like you said, some need more time, and they have certain needs. Like I think when you are a writer, or when you are writing something, like your work becomes different. Like
mm,
these people that you're writing about, or whatever you're writing about, like becomes real, at least in your mind, right? Like these people really exist in your mind. And I'm finding, like, right now, like with my second novel, it sort of feels like the story is there, but it's frozen in time, because like I haven't progressed it. So part of me, like, when I don't write, feels guilty, because it's like, hey, these
yeah,
people are trapped, they're frozen, they need to keep moving. So I can definitely relate to, like, the feeling of when you you know get into a certain character that you're working on, or a certain story you're working on, like immersing yourself in that world. And when you're not doing that, it feels weird. It almost feels like you're leaving them out to dry, or like out in the cold or something.
right.
It feels funny. So we are actually running a little bit short on time.
That's it.
So I do have one or two more questions I'd like to run by you. So these two books, are they a series of three or more?
We shall see.
We shall
It
see.
it will be at least three
So there's at least
uh,
one more on the horizon.
in progress.
Oh, wonderful. In
In
progress.
progress.
I love to hear
Um,
that.
so that is yeah, the the dark trip continues. So now one of the things that I will say I read, and I appreciate people who leave reviews, positive or negative, because it gives me insight. There was a reader that found Black Jenny first.
Interesting.
Right.
Yes.
And I said, "Oh, that
Yeah.
is very it shifted my perspective." So I will say, um, dare I say, you could probably read
It
flipped.
would be it would be interesting to read them out of order.
Right.
The sort of like, I don't want to compare it to like Star Wars, because like feels like different, but if you watch the Star Wars movies out of order, like the story feels a little different. The
Right.
overarching narrative feels a little bit different. So that's
Right.
interesting. That's interesting.
So so yeah, but the third is underway, and the we're not pulling any punches. This is not for the immature. It's not for, again, the faint of heart. Uh, and it these are people that you know, even if you don't realize it. So,
So my last question then will be, um, as writers, like obviously one of your goals is to have people read your books. But what is one or two of your biggest takeaway that you hope people get from your books?
actually, as writers do, right? We write stuff down. So, um, let me actually. So, I would like people to identify the darkness put in them by others. I want you to dispel it. I want you to acknowledge that you too have darkness in you. I want you to identify it. I want you to get to know it so you're not consumed by it. And then when you've done all of that, I want you to allow your light to grow so that even when external darkness comes back, it will not find an ally within you. That is what I want.
That's a great message.
So,
Great message. So where can the people keep in touch with you or follow the progress of what's going on?
boom. So, the world of E.O. Berkley on Facebook.com. There is Dark Papyrus Productions um, on TikTok, on Instagram, and very soon, probably within a week or so, Dark Papyrus Productions YouTube channel will be live, and this will be also a part of it.
Nice.
So I would definitely like all of my supporters to please go to Amazon.com. You can find Beyond the Cracked Door and Black Jenny for your Kindle or as paperback. I still believe in having hard copies of books. So, yes. And please check out Adam Fink. And I'm going to have to get you to sign this. So,
I did not put you up to this. Disclaimer,
he
I did
did
not put
not.
you up to this.
He did not put me up to this, but see, um, what real people do, real supporters, we support each other.
That's what we do.
So this is Adam's book. Um, boom, go check it out. So yeah, but
Well,
yeah,
thank you so much for taking the time out of your night to talk with me.
dude, I appreciate it.
And I know I'm personally looking really forward to what is going on in the world of E.L. Berkeley next.
I thank you so much, and so does my team at Dark Papyrus Productions. So.
Shout out to the team. Thank you,
Woo
team.
woo.